A History of Southern Missouri and Northern Arkansas by William Monks, published in 1907. The Ku Klux, Part 4, Number 56. And when the people of the city learned that my command had been ordered to leave the city, they at once presented the writer with a new suit of clothes. And on the arrival of the boat, and while we were loading our camp equipage, arms, and ammunition, about 300 or 400 persons, composed of men, women, and children, assembled on the bank of the river to bid us good-bye. And as the boat moved out, they waved their handkerchiefs and hats and gave 3 cheers for the soldier boys and their commanders. On our arrival at Marion, we turned over our guns, ammunition, and camp equipage, and were ordered by the Adjutant General to proceed to Jacksonport for further orders. And on our arrival at Jacksonport, the writer was ordered to leave his command at Jacksonport and to report in person to the governor at Little Rock. On my arrival at Little Rock, I was informed by the Adjutant General that the governor was dangerously sick and confined to his room. The legislature of the state being in session, I was invited by both houses to deliver an address to the legislature. Both bodies met in the lower house. The writer was introduced by the speaker, spoke as follows. Mr. President of the General Assembly of the State of Arkansas, it affords me great pleasure to have the honor of addressing this august body of men assembled in this hall, men who have been elected by the people of the whole state, men who have the interest of the people at heart, men who have the confidence of the people, men who are intelligent and know what kind of laws the people need, men who are determined to do your whole duty, men who have the courage, patriotism, and love of country at heart, who have stood by your posts while one of the most secret organizations, known as KUKLUX, bound by one of the most desperate oaths to overturn your state government by intimidation and murder of all the civil officers of the state, and to kill and murder the loyal citizens of your state. The intention of said organization was to overturn the legally constituted laws of the state, but through the untiring effort of your governor and his subordinate officers and the loyal people of your state, and the valor and patriotism of your soldiers, this organization has been completely routed and broken up, and the civil law is again declared to be enforced in your state. Now may your wisdom as legislators guide you and your successors in all duties that you may be called upon to perform in the legislative capacity, and may you always have the interest of the whole people at heart, and may all the laws that may be enacted by this legislature or your successors be in the interest of the whole people. And may patriotism and the love of both state and nation grow in the hearts of your people, and may they become so united that nothing can sever that cord of love for their state and nation. May God's blessing guide and direct every one of your public acts, and go with you to your homes and families. And now that your state is once more at peace and the civil laws being enforced, and your people are secure both in person and property, I therefore will return to Missouri to the bosom of my family. I bid you all goodbye. The whole house rose to its feet and gave 3 cheers and pressed forward to give the writer a good, pardon handshake. The governor continued to get worse. The doctors would not admit any person to his sick room. The Adjutant General informed me that the governor wanted to see me in person, that I had come to the rescue of the people with men in arms, when the loyal people were completely overpowered, and saved the northern part of the state from the control of the Ku Klux. He said the governor was well pleased with my services while in the state, that even the rebels spoke in the highest terms in regard to the discipline that I enforced over my men, that I had protected the person and property of both Union and rebel, and that I had given general satisfaction to all classes of persons that were favorable to the enforcement of the civil law, and that it was the desire of the governor to promote me to a brigadier general for the valuable services that I had rendered in the state, and placed me in command of the northern district. I said, "You can tell the governor, when he gets well, that I was very sorry to find him sick, that it would have been a pleasure to me to have met him in person, and the offer that he has made to me to promote me to brigadier general for the meritorious services that I have rendered to the state places me under many obligations to his honor for the high esteem and confidence he imposes in me, as touching my military service, and as a private citizen while in this state. And while I thank him for his offer to promote me to the rank of brigadier general and place me in command of the northern district of Arkansas, I must decline the offer and return to Missouri, for I love the people of my state, I love my home, and my desire is to become a private citizen. The only thing that impelled me to come into your state was to aid the state in enforcing the civil law and protect your people from assassination and murder, and to do all in my power to aid in bringing violators of law to justice. This being accomplished, and civil law again being enforced in every part of the state, my services as a soldier and an officer not being needed any longer, I will ask you again to give my respects to the governor, and will ever hold his memory sacred, and may God's blessing rest upon the people of your state and your chief executive. So I will bid you goodbye." I returned to Jackson Port and rejoined my command and marched directly to West Plains. There my men bid each other goodbye and returned to their homes, hoping that this thing of war would be over forever. On my arrival home, I found, to my great surprise, a new political organization composed of men who styled themselves liberal Republicans and Democrats and rebels, and through some of the most vicious and unprincipled rebels, they charged me with being a thief and a murderer. My friends came to me and requested that I at once institute suits of slander against them, for they knew that it was false from beginning to end. During the intervening time, they had called an indignation meeting and publicly denounced me as a thief and murderer. I instituted a civil suit for slander against all persons who took part in said indignation meeting. I also instituted a suit against one other man on the same charge. The county of Howell at that time, especially the judicial circuit, was presided over by a judge who was an extreme Democrat. The defense made application to the judge for a change of venue from this judicial circuit. He ordered the change sent to Laclede County to the city of Lebanon before Judge Feehan. The defense then set about taking depositions. I was notified to meet them in Sharp County at evening shade for the purpose of taking depositions. When we met at evening shade, they commenced hunting around for witnesses to prove their charges, but failed to find a single one. But every person they interviewed touching the charges declared that they were false, and that Colonel Monks enforced discipline over his men while he was in their state and protected everyone in person and property, and that all classes of persons regarded him as being perfectly honest and a good military officer. They failed to procure a single witness at that place. I next was notified to meet them in Oregon County at the courthouse for the purpose of taking depositions. I accordingly armed myself with 2 good Navy revolvers and went to Alton, the county seat of Oregon County. The circuit court being in session at that time, on my arrival I put up at a boarding house conducted by Alfred Harris, who still resides in that county. Circuit court being in session, I went into the courtroom and remained until recess. Just after recess, the judge came and told me that he had been informed that a mob then had the courthouse surrounded and was going to mob me whenever I entered the square, and to remain in the courtroom for a few minutes, and he would try and have the mob removed. In 8 or 10 minutes, the deputy sheriff returned and informed me that the mob had been removed and that I could go down and go to my hotel. As I passed down, I saw about 50 or 60 men in front of the saloons, swearing at the top of their voices, "He fought us during the Civil War, and he shall not be allowed to come into this county and live." After reaching the hotel, Mr. Harris, with several other friends, urged me not to meet the parties who were going to take depositions in one of the rooms of the courthouse, for they believed the mob would kill me. I laughed and told them that I reckoned not, that I thought the war was over, and that they couldn't play the game on me to notify me to meet them to take the depositions, and then prepare a mob to prevent me from appearing, so that they would be able to manufacture evidence in the case, and I would either be present at 1 o'clock, the time I was notified to meet them, or I would die in the attempt. So I appeared promptly at 1 o'clock, the time set, but not one of the opposite party, either attorney or client, put in an appearance. I remained there until 4 o'clock, and still no appearance had been entered by the defendants or their attorneys, and I again returned to my hotel after circuit court had adjourned for the day. While we were seated at the table eating supper, a man rapped at the hotel door and called to Mr. Harris, the landlord, that he wanted to see him privately for a few moments. Mr. Harris soon returned and remarked to the writer that he had been ordered to deliver a message, that he had just been informed that a mob of about 100 men then had the hotel surrounded, and they would give me 10 minutes to get out of town or I would be shot to death. I replied to Mr. Harris, "In the first place, I am too old to run, and in the second place, if these bushwhackers have not shed enough innocent blood, they will have the best opportunity now that they will ever get. Tell them that I don't intend to leave or run." Mr. Harris said that he would deliver the message to the bearer. There were 2 Confederates seated at the table eating. They said, "What does this mean? We thought the war was over." They got up and left the table. After the writer finished his supper, he retired to the sitting room, which adjoined Mr. Harris's library. Mr. Harris immediately came in and offered to barricade the doors and windows. I objected. He then remarked that the mob would shoot in through the windows, that he would blind the windows. I consented to his putting blinds on the windows, but that the doors shouldn't be interfered with. There was but one door entering the sitting room except the door that came through the library. I took my seat on the bench where I could reach the knob of the door with my left hand and hold my revolver in my right hand. Mr. Harris proposed to blow out the lights, to which I objected. I told him that if the mob came, I wanted the lights so that I could see how to shoot. He then took his seat and entered into conversation. In a few moments, some person took hold of the knob of the door. I rose to my feet with my revolver cocked in my right hand and left the door open just so that one man could enter at a time. Mr. Maxey of Howell County, an attorney at law, had come in to get a book out of the library, not knowing that there was any trouble up. As he came inside of the room, I had my pistol cocked and presented on his left breast. When I recognized Mr. Maxey, I lowered my pistol and remarked to him, "Your face has saved your life." Mr. Maxey became very much excited, walked across the floor once or twice, and inquired what was up. I informed him of the notice of the mob and the time that I had been given to leave the hotel, and that the time had then expired, and that when I heard him take hold of the door, I supposed the mob was coming. Mr. Maxey remarked that this thing will never do. I'm going to see if it can't be stopped. I requested him to say to every person that might be disposed to come into the house to make themselves known outside of the door before entering the house. In a short time, the circuit judge and deputy sheriff, with 2 or 3 others, came to the door and made themselves known and came in. The circuit judge said, "Colonel, I have been informed that you have been notified by a mob to leave the town in 10 minutes or you would be shot to death, and I have come to see if you wanted a guard." I replied that I didn't. If these goddamn bushwhackers haven't shed enough innocent blood and are still bloodthirsty, they will never have a better opportunity, so just let them come.